Here we have a 2012 year 4KA. It's got roughly 27,000 miles on the clock, and it is fitted with the 1.2 petrol engine. So as part of the service today, we're going to be doing an engine oil and filter change. As with all the oil and filter changes I do, I like to remove the oil filler cap first, or you can just loosen it. I'll put that up there and pull the dipstick out. That's just to allow air back into the engine when we're underneath, draining it out. Hopefully it'll drain a bit smoother and not glug everywhere. So we're underneath the car. There's your sump plug, sump bung, whatever you like to call it, in the bottom of the sump here. As you can see, it's an Allen key plug, which I've got an Allen key socket on my ratchet here. You can use a regular Allen key. I think that was a 12 millimeter. So we'll just go ahead and loosen that off. Got the drainer here. It's not particularly hot, so hopefully it won't come out too fast and splash everywhere, but obviously be ready to catch it. Okay, I'll place that down there, and they don't hold a lot of oil, so it won't take too long for that to drain out. Right, so the oil filter on this engine, as you can see, is here. It's just a spin-on canister type of filter, as opposed to the paper element. I'm going to use a pair of slide grips to take this off. You can get cups that fit on the end of the filter, you can get chains or bands that go round, you can get all kinds of tools to take filters off. I prefer to use these where possible, and 9 times out of 10 they do fit in there, and quite an easy thing to use, really. Some of you may realise that underneath this 4KA it looks quite similar to another vehicle which we've done recently, actually, Fiat 500. They do share the same, you know, underneath this could be a Fiat 500. They do share the same powertrain and subframe, suspension, everything is all pretty much Fiat 500. Just a little fact there. I'll try not to make a mess with this. So you can leave these dripping for a while, but they will still retain a bit of oil, so as soon as it comes undone, try and hold it upside down so it doesn't go everywhere. That's it. I'll just place that down on there to drain out. So a couple of things to check before you put the oil filter on. These rubber seals, they do just literally pull out. So before you screw it on, make sure the old one isn't still stuck on the housing there, the surface, which it makes up against. Another thing which you need to do is always just use a bit of the old engine oil. Put it on the seal. Just helps to prevent it from sticking. So hopefully on the next oil change it should come off as easy as that one did. You don't need to use any tools to tighten them up, just hand tight, that's all. And that should be fine. We'll get the sump plug back in next. And that's it. So we'll drop it down next and get some oil in. Right, so I've got my trusty homemade funnel. It's just out of a plastic bottle, but it does fit quite nicely. So as I was saying, the agent where I picked up the parts recommended 2.8 litres of engine oil. I like to slightly underfill and then run it up and check it. It's just much easier to top up in dribs and drabs than having to crawl underneath and drain out any excess. So I'm going to go ahead and put in about 2.5, 2.6 litres. Good idea to make sure the dipstick's still up to allow the air out of the engine and stop it glugging back up through here. A little bit more. Because having too much engine oil can cause damage, just like not having enough. So it's important to try and get it as close to the maximum mark as you can without going over it. Okay, so that's about 2.6 litres in there. All I'm going to do is start it up and just let it idle for a few seconds. Obviously make sure your oil pressure light goes out first. That's it, oil light's gone straight out, even though it says, what's it say there, oil pressure insufficient, but that's all settled now. That's why it's important not to start it up and rev it up, especially with an engine that's been drained with oil, because it can take a little while for it to circulate and get around all the bearings. But that sounds good. That's all you need to do. So the oil's now gone round and filled the filter and all the galleries. We'll just let it sit now for 3 or 4 minutes, let it all settle and drain into the sump, and then we'll check it on the dipstick. Okay, this is sat now for 4 or 5 minutes. The end of the dipstick, I've cleaned it. You can see this like checkered area there. That the bottom of it there is the minimum mark, and the top edge there is the maximum. So we don't really want to go over that maximum. So it's got 2.6 in it. It was recommended 2.8. Hopefully that is a little bit low. Bit difficult to see, but yeah, it's about 5 mil from the top. So what I'll do now is put a little bit in there. You just got to keep repeating this process really, just slowly add in little bits until you're happy with the level. Right, okay. That'll do. Just leave that again for a few more minutes and we'll dip it again in a moment. Okay, this has been sat again now for about 3 or 4 minutes. I'd say it's got just under 2.8 in there at the moment, about 2.7. And I think I'll leave it at that. It's a couple of millimetres off the maximum mark. Obviously the longer it sits here, the residue oil will drain down and that level will come up fractionally, so I'm quite happy with that. All that's left to do now, as I do with most of my jobs, is just take it for a short run around the block, bring it back in and make sure there are no leaks, but I'm pretty confident that that's all okay. Maybe put your hand on the oil filter, make sure it's still tight. Yeah, and that just about sums it up. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully the video's been of some help for you. And if it has, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It will help our channel out no end. Cheers.